Have you ever heard of unconditional love? Not the kind that says, "I love you" with words, but the kind that expresses itself in silence, with the simple act of waiting. This is one of those stories that isn't made up. It happens. And it happens in the rawest, most real, and saddest way, too. In the hustle and bustle of life, few would stop to notice a little dog always lying in the same corner, with a fixed gaze, as if waiting for something, or someone. But that someone had a name. His name was Carlos, and the dog was Toby. Carlos was a simple, hard-working man who lived a discreet life in an ordinary neighborhood, the kind of person who would go unnoticed by many. But to Toby, he was everything. A hero, an entire universe. The two met by chance, or perhaps by destiny, when Toby was just a skinny puppy, abandoned near a square. Carlos saw him shivering with cold on a rainy afternoon, and at that moment, something inside him stirred. From then on, they became inseparable. Toby followed Carlos wherever he went. In the morning, he would wait at the bedroom door until Carlos woke up. When Carlos had his coffee, there was Toby lying at the foot of the table. And whenever he left for work, the dog would lie down next to the gate, only getting up again when he heard the sound of the motorcycle returning home. They were small details, but true loyalty lies in the details. The neighbors said it was beautiful to see. A man and his dog, an almost magical pair, enveloped in a routine that only the two of them understood. There was no luxury, no excess, but there was affection, there was presence. Toby didn't need much. A touch on the fur, an afternoon stroll, a piece of bread shared impromptu. That's how he saw the world. And Carlos, even with all the difficulties, always made time for that. They walked together on the dirt sidewalk, played with an old piece of rope in the yard, and when it rained, the two shared space under the old brown blanket on the torn living room sofa. There were no promises, but there was something even stronger: constancy. Something rare these days, because Toby didn't know about clocks, he didn't know about Saturdays or Sundays. He only knew one thing: being there, being fully present every day, being there for Carlos no matter what came. But life, as we know, has a strange way of disrupting what seems too good to be true. Sometimes it doesn't warn you, it just changes everything. And it was on one of those mornings that something happened. Something that even Toby couldn't understand. Carlos left, but this time he didn't come back. And that's where another kind of story began. One that nobody wants to tell, but it needs to be told. Because what came next, that's where the true meaning of loyalty appeared. Carlos left, but this time he didn't come back. Toby spent the entire day sitting in front of the gate. The sun changed position several times in the sky. The street grew silent, the neighbors closed their doors, and he remained there, waiting. That night he didn't want to eat. He didn't lie down on the sofa. He didn't chase after the old ball that always cheered him up. He just stayed there, his eyes fixed on the same spot, as if at any moment that familiar sound of the motorcycle would break the silence and return the joy that had vanished from the air. But the days went by. 1, 2, 3, and still no sign of Carlos. Gradually, some people began to notice. What happened to Toby's owner? The neighbors asked. Some tried to lure him back, offering him food, shelter, but he refused. Not out of distrust, but out of loyalty. Toby didn't want a new home. He wanted his own, with Carlos's scent, with Carlos's voice, with the presence that would never return. What few knew was that Carlos had suffered a serious accident. He was hospitalized, far away, unconscious. And Toby knew nothing. He only felt. He felt the absence. He felt the change. And yet he continued waiting, every day in the same place, in rain, in sun, in cold. People walked by and were moved. Some stopped to take pictures, others cried silently. Because seeing that dog there, steadfast every day, was like looking at what we've lost: purity, true loyalty, love without a contract. And that's why this story needs to be told, because Toby represents so many dogs that are abandoned, forgotten, ignored, that feel, that suffer, that wait, even when no one else believes. And he also represents a chance for change. If you've made it this far, I invite you to be a part of this change. Leave a comment saying, "I believe in the love of dogs." Share this story, like it, subscribe. This isn't just about engagement, it's about awareness. Together, we can spread stories like Toby's so that more people can see the truth that lies behind an animal's eyes. They don't speak, but they say everything with their eyes. Now, take a deep breath, because what comes next will hit you even deeper. Toby remained there, day after day, night after night. The same song, the same gaze, lost in the void. It was as if time had stopped for him, but not for the world around him. The noise of passing cars, the wind carrying dry leaves across the sidewalk, the creaking of the neighbor's gate. Everything continued at its normal pace, except for Toby's heart. He didn't understand. To him, Carlos had only gone out for a moment. Maybe a quick trip to the market, a visit to a friend. He believed he would soon hear the sound of the motorcycle engine, that noise that made him jump up and run to the gate with his tail wagging and his eyes shining. But the silence now was deafening. Carlos was in a hospital, far away, unconscious. A traffic accident had thrown him off his simple routine. A curve, a moment of distraction, and everything changed. But Toby didn't know that. And what the eyes don't see, the heart doesn't understand. He only felt that something was wrong. And even so, he waited. He waited like someone who waits for the impossible with the faith of a child. People started to notice. Neighbors would pass by and see the dog standing in the same spot, sometimes lying down, sometimes sitting, ears perked up and eyes fixed on the street. Some tried to offer him food, others called him inside, but Toby wouldn't leave. It wasn't stubbornness. It was love. It was loyalty. It was the silent refusal to accept that something so precious had been broken without explanation. It rained heavily on some days. The ground flooded, the wind cut like a razor, but he didn't move. On others, the sun beat down on the asphalt and heated the metal of the gate until it almost burned. And yet, there he was, like a living statue, guarding the last memory of the owner who wouldn't return. The same gate, the same silence. Have you ever noticed how dogs measure time differently? They don't count minutes or days, they count moments, and every moment without Carlos was a piece of Toby's soul that was lost. Nighttime was the cruelest part, because darkness brings echoes, and echoes bring memories. That sofa where they used to sleep together, now empty, the sound of the key turning in the door, which no longer happened, the smell of food that didn't come from the kitchen. And the hardest part, the silence coming from the left side of the bed, where Carlos used to breathe heavily after a tiring day. Toby's entire world had vanished, without warning, without explanation, and even so he kept waiting, because dogs don't know how to give up. They don't know what it means to accept reality as we humans talk about it. They simply wait, because in their hearts, love is eternal, even if the world says otherwise. Some residents started taking pictures. Others commented on social media, "That dog is still there." Toby's story began to spread, but for him, none of that mattered. He only wanted one thing, to see Carlos come through the gate one more time. Gradually, people began to approach more. They brought blankets, food, clean water, but there was one thing no one could give: their presence. And that's what a dog misses most. It's not luxury, it's not an expensive toy, it's the owner's scent, the touch of a familiar hand, the sound of a calming voice. What Toby needed, no one could replace. There was one night in particular, one of those nights when the wind seemed to weep, the trees swayed violently, and the sky poured down with a fine, persistent rain. And there he was, huddled near the gate, soaked but motionless. Only his eyes shone. not with joy but with longing, a longing that has no name, no end, a longing that only those who have waited for someone who may never return can understand. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine what goes through the mind of an animal that doesn't understand the reason for its absence but still insists on waiting? That's why stories like this need to be told, because they reveal a truth that is often ignored. Dogs feel. Dogs become attached. Dogs love. And when that love is broken so abruptly, the pain they feel is real as ours. If you've ever seen an animal waiting for someone, if you've ever witnessed this silent pain, share it here in the comments. Write, "I saw it with my own eyes," or "I feel this pain." It may seem like little, but each word you say shows that they are not alone, that Toby's story touches other hearts, that even in suffering there is a current of empathy. And if you've never seen it, but were moved by this story, then write below, "I want change," because together we can change the way people see the love of an animal. A love that doesn't demand, doesn't require, it just feels and waits. Now take a deep breath, because what comes next is what truly breaks your heart. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, and Toby was still there, steady, silent, motionless, almost like part of the scenery. The house's facade began to show signs of neglect. The once simple but always clean garden had become overgrown with weeds. The windows were dusty, and the gate where Toby lay every day was rusty, as if time had stopped there along with him. But even with everything around them fading, the only thing that remained unchanged was Toby's presence. The same posture, the same fixed gaze, the same silence heavy with expectation. Some people said he had gone crazy, that he was a dog who couldn't understand that his owner wasn't coming back. But anyone who truly knows a dog's heart knows it's not madness. It's love. A love that doesn't change with time. A love that, even without receiving anything in return, remains there, whole. Toby was taken to a shelter once. A group of volunteers decided to intervene, thinking they were doing what was best. They bathed him, fed him, tried to distract him with toys and walks, but he didn't stay. At the first opportunity, he escaped. He walked for miles until he found the same gate again, and he lay down there again, as if that were the only place in the world where he could still feel close. Near whom? Near Carlos, of course. Because even without knowing where his owner was, even without understanding the reason for his absence, he still felt it. He felt that this was the only point of connection between the two, the last place where their eyes met, where Carlos's hands touched his snout for the last time before leaving. And there he stayed. Seasons passed. The summer heat burned the ground where Toby lay. The winter cold made him shiver during the early morning hours. Sometimes it snowed lightly. Other times the storm seemed to want to sweep everything away. But nothing made him leave. Nothing. Because he wasn't there for comfort. He was there out of loyalty, for memory, for love. Some residents of the area created a routine for him. A woman would leave food out every day at the same time. A teenager used to talk to him, even knowing he wouldn't respond. An older man would bring him an old blanket when the temperature dropped. And yet, everyone knew Toby wouldn't come inside. He didn't want a new home. He wasn't looking for affection. What he wanted was impossible, but he still believed, and that's what's most moving about this story. It's not just the sadness of absence, it's the purity of persistence. It's the love that endures even in the face of emptiness. It's the hope that doesn't die, even when everything seems lost. Every now and then, he would get up, he would walk to the corner, look both ways down the street, as if searching for that familiar sound. The sound of the motorcycle engine, the jingle of keys in his pocket, Carlos's laughter calling his name with that affectionate way only he had. But when nothing happened, Toby would return, slowly, silently, and lie down again, sometimes with a deep sigh, sometimes just with a downcast gaze, but always waiting. And then you ask yourself, until when? Nobody knows the answer, because for Toby, time isn't measured in hours or days. It's measured in faith, in feeling, in memory. As long as he remembers the smell, the voice, the touch, he will remain there, even if the street changes, even if the faces around him age, even if the world tells him to give up. It's as if, in his heart, Carlos is still just behind schedule, as if at some point everything will go back to normal. And that says much more about him than about us. Perhaps you're wondering where Carlos is now. Maybe you imagine he's returned, that he's reunited with his best friend. Maybe you want a happy ending like in the movies. But life doesn't always deliver that. Sometimes it only delivers stark reality. And that's why this story doesn't end here, because there's something even deeper in this waiting, something that needs to be said, something that needs to be felt. But before we continue with this story, I want to extend an invitation to you who are still here, following along. If this story touched you, if you felt something imagining this dog alone day after day, never giving up, tell me in the comments. He writes, "I would never give up on the one I love." Or if you want to be even more direct, comment, "Fidelity is waiting, even in silence." These words are more than just pretty phrases. They show that you understood, that you felt, that a dog's love, however silent, speaks loudly within us. And if you've seen something similar, if you know of a real case, share it too. Because when we tell our stories, we connect. And when we connect, we transform. And now take a deep breath, because the next chapter of this story is the most powerful of all.